The farmhouse on Hollow Creek Road had always looked tired, its siding warped by seasons of rain and silence. Yet when Deputy Claire Rourke stepped inside that night, it wasn't the smell of mold or the creak of the warped floorboards that unsettled her. It was Jasper, the department seasoned K9, who froze at the threshold of the living room and began barking, hackles raised, at a plain wooden chair tucked neatly against the wall. The chair was empty. The room was empty. But Jasper wouldn't stop. And sometimes when a dog refuses to look away, it's because the house is watching back. If you find yourself hooked by stories like this, consider supporting with a like or a quiet subscribe. It helps more than you think. The storm had been crawling across the valley since dusk, turning the road to mud and shadow. Claire killed the engine and let the silence settle. The farmhouse ahead crouched against the dark, like it didn't want to be found, its porch light long dead. She sat for a beat, tapping her fingers on the steering wheel, while Jasper whined in the back seat. The German shepherd's ears were pinned forward, focused on the house. "Easy, boy," she muttered, unclipping his lead. The dog shot out into the wet night, nose twitching, tail stiff as a rod. The call had come from dispatch just after 9. Neighbors reported shouting, then nothing. The farmhouse belonged to Ruth Mannerly, a widow in her late 60s, known for her garden and her long silences. Ruth hadn't been seen in weeks, and most folks chalked it up to her grief. Claire wasn't so sure. Lightning split the sky as she climbed the steps, the boards groaning beneath her boots. Jasper was already pressed to the doorframe, pawing at the wood. His growl vibrated low, almost questioning. Claire rapped her knuckles against the door. "Mrs. Mannerly?" "Sheriff's Department." Silence. Just the rain hissing on the roof. She turned the knob. It wasn't locked. Inside, the air was heavy, stale with mildew and something sharper, metallic, that curled the back of her throat. Jasper lunged ahead, nails clicking, his body taut. The living room revealed itself in flashes of lightning. Sagging sofa, lace curtains gray with dust, picture frames leaning on crooked nails. And then the chair. It sat against the far wall, facing inward, angled as though waiting for someone to sit. Plain wood, scuffed legs, nothing remarkable, except Jasper stood rigid before it, teeth bared, barking in rapid bursts, his body lowered, tail stiff, the way he did when cornering something alive. Claire swept her flashlight beam across the room. Nothing. No movement. No intruder. Just peeling wallpaper and the hum of silence. "Jasper," she warned, tugging his lead. But the dog refused to budge, each bark ricocheting off the empty walls. Her radio crackled. "Unit 7, status check." She lifted the mic, still clearing. House is vacant so far, but the K9's keyed up. "Copy. Proceed with caution." She clipped the radio back and exhaled. Her pulse hadn't slowed since she'd stepped out of the cruiser. "Okay," she muttered to Jasper. "You win." She edged toward the chair, every sense prickling. Nothing unusual, until her beam passed over the wall behind it. At first, it looked like age. Uneven plaster, faint water stains. But then she noticed the lines, too straight, too deliberate, almost like seams. The wallpaper bubbled in places, peeled where moisture had seeped. And faintly, so faintly she thought she imagined it, there was a smell. Not the sharp tang of mold. Something older. Rotten. Claire crouched, gloved fingers tracing the plaster. Jasper's barking slowed to a growl, a tremor building in his chest. She rose quickly, retreating to the doorway, breath shallow. If she stayed, the smell might name itself. The next morning, the house looked smaller in daylight. Sheriff Dalton arrived just after 7, boots crunching the gravel drive. He was a man weathered by years of dealing with things that didn't make sense. His eyes narrowed against the wind. "You're telling me the dog lost his mind over a chair?" he asked, sipping coffee from a dented thermos. "Not the chair," Claire said. She pointed to the wall. "What's behind it?" Dalton squinted at the faint seams, scratching his jaw. "Looks like shoddy patchwork. Probably just an old coal chute or crawl space." Jasper sat stiff beside Claire, gaze still locked on the same spot. "I want it opened," Claire said. Dalton sighed. You're fresh out of academy, Rourke. Not every bad smell means a crime scene. Then why won't he stop? She nodded toward Jasper. The dog hadn't blinked once. Dalton followed her gaze, and for a moment, the sheriff's usual skepticism cracked. He knew better than to ignore a working K-9's instincts. All right, he said finally. We'll bring in a team. But you're leading the sweep. You started this. Claire nodded, though her stomach tightened. By noon, the farmhouse was crawling with uniforms. The smell had worsened, clinging to their clothes, saturating the damp walls. Tools clanged as a deputy pried at the plaster. The wallpaper tore back like dead skin. Claire stood a step behind. Jasper pressed her aside. When the first hole opened, cold air rushed out. Not just musty cellar air. Something denser, fetid, like the exhale of something long trapped. Deputies gagged, pulling scarves over their faces. Jesus Christ, one muttered. Dalton ordered lights. A portable flood lamp flicked on, illuminating a cavity about 3 feet deep. Dust swirled in the beam, and within that narrow space, bones, at least a dozen, tangled and pale, jutting from the soil like roots. A human skull, jaw agape, stared back from the dark. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Dalton turned to Claire. Looks like you were right. Her throat worked. That's not just one body. No, Dalton said grimly. It's not. Jasper barked once sharp, as if punctuating the silence. Then he fell still, eyes never leaving the hole. That night, the farmhouse was cordoned off, floodlights glaring against the rain. Forensics crews in white suits moved like ghosts, cataloging remains. Word already spread through Hollow Creek. Neighbors clustered at the edge of the tape, whispering, faces pale in the glow. Claire leaned against a cruiser, fatigue settling into her bones. Dalton joined her, jaw set. You know what this means, he said quietly. That Ruth Manley's got more than grief on her conscience. Don't jump, Dalton cautioned. We don't know if those are her doing. Claire shook her head. Then who's? Dalton didn't answer. Behind them, Jasper whined softly, his gaze drifting not to Hole but to the empty chair still standing in the corner. It hadn't been moved. No one dared touch it. And for reasons Claire couldn't explain, she felt the chair was waiting. The rain didn't let up for 3 days. By the time the coroner's office cleared the farmhouse, Hollow Creek had turned into a town of locked doors and whispered theories. The remains pulled from behind Ruth Manley's wall numbered 5 in total, 4 adults and 1 child. No identification yet. No timeline. Just bones, yellowed and brittle, bound together with damp soil and silence. Claire hadn't slept more than a handful of hours since the discovery. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the chair. It lingered in her mind's eye, empty yet waiting, like it knew something she didn't. Jasper hadn't forgotten either. Even at the station, when they debriefed, his ears twitched at shadows, his stare distant, as though he were listening to the walls. Claire, Dalton said one morning, sliding a folder across her desk. Got something you want to see. She flipped it open. Inside were faded photographs. Ruth Manley in her 20s, standing beside a tall man with military posture. His eyes were sharp, commanding, but his smile didn't reach them. That's her late husband, Dalton said. Daniel Manley. Served overseas. Came back different from what I hear. Violent. Neighbors mentioned shouting. Broken things. She stuck by him, though, until one day he disappeared. Disappeared? Claire frowned. No record? Dalton shook his head. Town figured he left her. Ruth never spoke about it. Not once. Just carried on. Claire tapped the photo. You think he's in that wall? Dalton's expression darkened. Maybe, but it doesn't explain the others. That evening, Claire drove out to the edge of town where Ruth was staying temporarily with her sister, an austere woman named Margaret. The sister's house smelled of lavender and wood smoke, but there was no warmth in it. Ruth was smaller in person than Claire remembered from the one school event years ago. Her frame was thin, her hands restless in her lap, yet her eyes, gray and unblinking, carried something hard, something that had withstood years of silence. You found them, Ruth said without preamble. Claire sat across from her, Jasper at her side. Yes, we found them. Ruth's lips trembled, but she did not cry. I told him the house would never let them go. Claire leaned forward. Mrs. Manley. Who are they? The people in the wall? Ruth shook her head slowly. Not people. Ghosts. He made them ghosts. Daniel. Her hands clenched tight. He said they were trespassers. Strangers. Said they came at night, threatened the farm, threatened us. But they never made a sound once he brought them inside. Only the chair did. Claire exchanged a glance with Margaret, who stood rigid in the doorway. The chair? Claire pressed. Ruth nodded, eyes glassy. Every night after it happened, he would sit in that chair, rocking, talking to no one, sometimes laughing, sometimes whispering. When he was gone, the chair didn't stop. It still listens. That's why the dog knows. They're still there. Her words carried the weight of confession, but also delusion. Claire tried to keep her voice steady. Mrs. Manley. Did you ever see him kill anyone? No, Ruth whispered. I only heard, and then I pretended not to. The next day, Dalton called Claire into his office. Autopsy reports are back. Time of death varies. The child been gone the longest, 30 years, maybe more. Adults span 25 down to 12 years ago. None matched Daniel's supposed disappearance date. Claire stiffened. So Ruth lied. Dalton raised a brow, or left something out. Either way, you were right to push. But we've got a problem. He handed her another file. Inside was a missing persons bulletin dated 12 years prior. A teenage girl, long hair, braces, last seen near Hollow Creek. Claire's breath caught. This one matches the younger remains? Dalton nodded grimly. Dental records align. Family's been waiting over a decade for closure. Now they'll want answers. And so do I. That night, Claire returned to the farmhouse. Alone. The crime scene tape still fluttered against the porch. But the deputies had left. Inside, the air felt heavier, the silence more deliberate. Jasper patted in at her side, nose twitching, ears alert. The chair remained where it had always been. The wall was torn open now, gaping, but the chair seemed untouched, unbothered by the chaos. Claire sat down across from it, notebook in hand. What the hell are you? She whispered. Jasper growled low, tail rigid. For a long while, nothing moved. The house creaked with settling wood. Then a faint scrape, not from the torn wall, but from within the floorboards beneath the chair. Claire froze. The sound came again, a dragging like nails or chains across wood. Jasper lunged forward, barking, pawing at the boards beneath the chair. Claire knelt, flashlight sweeping. The boards were scratched deep as if clawed from underneath. Her stomach tightened. She lifted the chair aside. It was heavier than it looked, as though weighted. Beneath it, one of the floorboards was looser than the rest. With trembling hands, she pried it open. The cavity beneath was shallow, barely large enough for a small chest. Inside lay a bundle wrapped in stained burlap. She pulled it free. The smell hit her instantly, acrid, decayed. Inside the burlap was a bundle of belongings, a locket, a child's shoe, a blood-stained handkerchief, and beneath those a knife, rusted, but unmistakably marked with initials, DM. Claire's chest tightened. Daniel Manley hadn't disappeared. He'd left a signature. Jesus, she whispered. Jasper whined, pawing the burlap. Claire shoved it back inside, heart pounding. She rose, gripping her radio. Sheriff, you need to see this. But a noise cut her off. A footstep. Upstairs. Claire drew her weapon, every muscle wired tight. Sheriff's Department, she called, voice steady despite her racing heart. Come down slowly. Silence. Then another creak overhead. Jasper growled, teeth flashing. She motioned him forward, ascending the staircase one careful step at a time. Each board moaned under her weight, the air thick with dust. At the top, the hallway stretched dark, doors ajar. Claire swept each with her light. Empty bedroom, stripped bathroom. Then the last door, closed. She pressed her ear to it. Faint breathing. Claire exhaled hard. Pushed the door open. The room was empty. Just moth-eaten curtains, a cracked dresser. Except on the dresser sat a fresh mug of coffee. Steam still rising. Claire's blood ran cold. Someone had been here minutes ago. Jasper barked furiously, teeth snapping at the air. And then Claire saw it. On the mirror above the dresser, written in the fog of condensation. Leave it buried. She didn't sleep that night. Dalton's skepticism evaporated when he saw the burlap bundle and the message, but the sheriff's warning was clear. If someone's watching the house, they're not done, and they know we're close. The town was tightening with unease. Rumors spread. That Ruth knew more than she admitted. That Daniel never left. That the Manleys weren't the only ones keeping secrets. Claire tried to shake it, but the mirror haunted her. Someone had been inside with her. Someone close enough to breathe on the glass. And worst of all, the chair wasn't finished. Because when she passed through the station late the next evening, Jasper stopped cold, ears perked. He turned his head toward the interrogation room. Claire followed his gaze. Through the glass, the room was empty, except for a chair in the corner, an identical chair, and Jasper began to bark. The sound of Jasper's bark ricocheted through the station's corridors, sharp, urgent. Deputies poked their heads from offices, puzzled, but none stepped closer. Claire stood frozen before the glass of the interrogation room, staring at the chair. Same plain wood, same scuff legs, but it couldn't be the same. The farmhouse was locked down, everything inside tagged and bagged. Still, there was... Dalton appeared at her side, irritation in his voice. What's the damn dog barking at now? Claire didn't answer. She reached for the door handle, heart pounding. The room smelled faintly of bleach and stale coffee, the lingering tang of a space too often used for confessions. She approached the chair slowly, flashlight beam steady. The wood was damp, not from cleaning, from rain. Her pulse hammered. This chair had been moved here recently, dragged through the storm. Who authorized this? She demanded, spinning on Dalton. The sheriff's jaw tightened. I did. The silence between them thickened. You what? Dalton's face was unreadable. Evidence was piling up in that house. I had it transferred for examination. No need to spook the town with ghost stories about furniture. Claire stared at him. Jasper barked again, lunging against his lead. But Dalton's hand clamped down on the dog's collar, restraining him. You don't understand, Claire said sharply. That chair isn't just evidence. It's what Dalton cut in. Nothing more. Don't lose your head. But Claire saw it in his eyes. He wasn't just dismissing her. He was hiding something. That night, Claire couldn't let it go. She drove back to the farmhouse, the storm having washed the valley into rivers of mud. Jasper whined softly in the passenger seat, restless. The house loomed ahead, darker than ever. She pushed inside, flashlights sweeping the hollow rooms. The wall cavity was still open, bones long removed, but the space felt no less occupied. On instinct, she retraced her steps to the upstairs room, the one with a mug of coffee. The mug was gone, the mirror wiped clean. But something new remained, carved into the wood of the dresser. Deep gouges still fresh. Ask Dalton. Claire staggered back. Her breath came fast, shallow. Someone was taunting her, close enough to follow her every move. The next morning, she confronted him. Dalton was already at his desk, coat slung over his chair, papers stacked neatly. He looked older than he had the day before. You want to tell me what I should be asking you, she said, tossing a photo of the carving onto his desk. Dalton's eyes flicked to it. He didn't flinch. Careful, Rourke. You're starting to sound paranoid. Paranoid? She leaned in, voice low, tight. Someone's been in that house since the bodies were found, leaving messages, moving things. And you authorized the chair's transfer without telling me. Dalton closed the folder in front of him. Sit down. I'll stand. For a long moment, they locked eyes. Then Dalton sighed. Fine. You want the truth? I knew Daniel Manley. Claire froze. Not personally, Dalton continued, but When I was a rookie, I caught whispers. He had friends in uniform. He'd come back from service with scars and stories, men who owed him. There were complaints, missing drifters, a migrant boy never seen again. But no one wanted to chase them. No one wanted to tarnish a veteran's name. And Ruth? Claire asked, complicit or terrified? Hard to tell. Dalton rubbed his temples. I kept my mouth shut, told myself it wasn't my case, not my problem. That chair? It was in reports back then, too. Deputies swore they heard voices near it. I thought it was stress. But he trailed off. But now 5 bodies on the ground, Claire said coldly. Dalton met her eyes. And more might be, if you keep digging where the town doesn't want you to. The betrayal tasted bitter. She thought of all the cases that could have been closed. The families left a rotting grief. You knew, she whispered. You knew something was wrong and you did nothing. Dalton's face hardened. Be careful, Rourke. Justice and survival don't always walk hand in hand. That evening, Claire sat in her cruiser outside the farmhouse, rain drumming the roof. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Come alone. Basement. Tonight, or the dog dies. Her gut twisted. She looked at Jasper, who sat alert in the back seat, eyes fixed on her. Every instinct screamed trap, but she couldn't ignore it. She armed herself, unclipped Jasper, and approached the house. The basement door groaned open, the smell of wet earth rising. Her flashlight cut across rusted shelves, broken tools, the sheen of damp stone. And then a figure, Ruth Mannerly. She sat slumped on a stool in the corner, hands trembling. He never left, she whispered. Who? Claire asked, gun raised. Ruth's eyes darted past her, toward the shadows. Daniel. He's still here. He never left the house. Jasper barked, lunging at the darkened far wall. Claire turned and froze. A section of the stone wall shifted. A man stepped out, his frame gaunt, his beard wild, but his eyes sharp, familiar. The same eyes from a photograph. Daniel Mannerly. Alive. Claire's breath hitched. He moved slowly, calmly, as if stepping from his bedroom, not a tomb. Deputy, he rasped, voice gravel. You found my work. Her weapon didn't waver. You should be dead. Dead. He smiled thinly. I've been right here. Watching. Listening. The chair kept me company. Ruth whimpered. Daniel, please. Quiet, he snapped, and the sound of command silenced the room. Claire steadied her voice. Those people, the ones in the wall. Why? Daniel's smile deepened. Because no one misses the unwanted. They come wandering. They take. I kept Hollow Creek clean. And the chair, it told me when it was time. Jasper snarled, teeth bared. You're insane, Claire spat. No, Daniel said softly. I'm necessary. And then Dalton's voice echoed from the stairs. Put the gun down, Claire. Her stomach dropped. Dalton stepped into the beam of light, weapon holstered, face grim. You knew, Claire whispered. Dalton's eyes didn't meet hers. This town needed him. There are things you don't understand. Betrayal cut like a blade. Daniel's laugh rattled the basement walls. See? Even your sheriff knows. For a moment, Claire considered pulling the trigger. But Dalton stood there, silent, complicit, and she knew fire would end her career, maybe her life. Then Jasper lunged. The K-9 shot forward, teeth sinking into Daniel's arm. He roared, stumbling back. Claire seized the opening, firing once into his leg. He collapsed, bellowing. Dalton swore, drawing his gun, but Claire turned hers on him. Don't, she warned. They locked eyes, sheriff and deputy, trust in ashes. Then Dalton slowly raised his hands. Daniel was dragged out of the basement in cuffs, howling curses that clung to the night. Ruth wept silently, her face pale as ash. Dalton resigned within the week, his complicity too deep to bury. The chair was taken into evidence once more, but no one sat in it. No one dared. Claire visited the farmhouse one last time before it was boarded up. The rooms were empty, stripped, but the silence still pressed close. She walked to the living room, Jasper at her side, and looked at the spot where the chair had stood. For the first time, Jasper didn't bark. He sat quietly, head against her knee, as though satisfied. Claire touched his fur, the weight of exhaustion and betrayal pressing down. But beneath it was something else. Quiet resolve. The house was finished. The dead had been named. And Hollow Creek, scarred and silent, would never be the same. As she turned to leave, she glanced back one last time. The space where the chair had stood was empty, but in her mind, it always would be occupied